Michael Popok, Legal AF, right on cue, right after the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security announced that there was an increased threat level against election-related targets, those that are seen as the political enemy of Donald Trump in the wake of Pennsylvania. We've got new reporting that there is an indictment that's now been unsealed in Georgia, the Northern District of Georgia, against John Woodbury for making threats of assassination and death threats against FBI Director Chris Wray. It just got unsealed. I'll read. It's a very short indictment. I'll read it to you. But it is another example just in the last few months of the FBI tracking down and with the Department of Justice indicting and prosecuting people that make death threats against elected officials, election officials, FBI agents, any other perceived enemy of Donald Trump, and to try to put them in jail. That's not lawfare. That's properly securing the homeland and making sure that bad things don't happen to good people at the hands of crazy followers of Donald Trump. There's no other way to put it. John Woodbury, 34 years old, from Roswell, Georgia, has been charged with 2 felony charges related to his threats. I'm going to read to you from the indictment, and then I'm going to put it in context of, these 3 big pieces here in the hot take. You've got the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI making a rare joint intelligence bulletin saying that violent extremists may attempt follow-on or retaliatory acts of violence in the wake of what happened to Trump in Pennsylvania. And that anyone that's perceived to be a political or ideological opponent of Trump is a potential target with a heightened threat assessment level. Right on cue, we got John Woodbury. Let's talk about John Woodbury for a minute. He's been indicted for 2 counts. 1, threats by interstate communication, and 2, threats to a federal law enforcement officer. He went on a 4chan.org dark web board, and he posted the following threat against Wray. This is from the indictment. Quote, let's show them, this is after he posted Chris Wray's purported home address. Let that sink in for a minute. Quote, let's show them what a effing Nazi looks like. This is from the indictment. It's time to burn these MFers down and hang them from trees, hit them where it effing hurts, hit Chris at his home, make his family fear stepping 1 foot outside their goddamn door. And for that, this Trump supporter is probably going to be looking at spending a considerable amount of time in jail, whether he has a bench trial in the Northern District of Georgia in the Atlanta division, or he decides he's going to roll the dice with a jury in Atlanta. He's likely going to jail for, I would think, up to 5 years, if not longer, based on these threats. It really depends on his background, criminal background, and whether he took any other steps to actually execute Chris Wray. Put this in context. Just last month, Tim Miller out of Texas, he's been indicted because he made death threats on a voicemail message left for the FBI and the FBI agents who were actually investigating the Hunter Biden gun charge case that went to trial, and Hunter Biden was convicted. Not because they were pro-Hunter Biden, but because they wanted the FBI agent to expand the investigation against Hunter Biden and bring a more sprawling, sweeping investigation. And here's the death threats that Mr. Miller left on an FBI agent's voicemail. Again, with full impunity. They're thinking that they're not going to be caught. They don't care. Tone at the top. Fearless leader Donald Trump will bail them out. This is the psychology or psychosis that's being exhibited by these acts. Here's the quote from Mr. Miller. It's in his indictment in Texas. Quote, you can steal another election and the guns will come out and will hunt you sea suckers down and slaughter you like the traitorous dogs you are. The last thing you'll ever hear are the horrified shrieks of your widow and orphans. You're going to jail if you're lucky, but I suspect you won't be. And that guy who threatened the FBI agent, he's going to jail for a long time, and he's been pretrial detained, as I expect Mr. Woodbury will be as well, based on these violent threats. Newsflash to those that follow Donald Trump. If you think you're going to be able to pick up the phone or use your fingers to make death threats against judges, FBI agents, investigators, attorney generals, and anybody else who you perceive to be a political enemy because Donald Trump has told you that they're a political enemy, you are likely by yourself, without Donald Trump at the moment, going to jail, and for a long time. Cat food has been the same forever. It's time for cat food to move into the 21st century. That's why you've got to try Smalls. It's time to make kibble a thing of the past. Smalls cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free ingredients you'd find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. That's why veterinarians.org rates Smalls 10 out of 10 for ingredient quality. My cat, Chanel, yes, Chanel, her favorite flavor is smooth fish, and my cat prefers Smalls way more than her previous cat food. I did a taste test. I put 2 bowls side by side, and Chanel immediately went to Smalls. Smalls was started back in 2017 by a couple of guys home cooking cat food in small batches for their friends. And a few short years later, they've served millions of meals to cats across the U.S. I feel better knowing I'm feeding my cat Chanel real food, not burnt kibble. I can finally open a packet of cat food and not get nauseous. I actually recognize the ingredients in a packet of Smalls food. After making the switch to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. That's a big deal. The team at Smalls is so confident your cat will love their product that you can try it risk-free. That means they will refund you if your cat won't eat their food. Now is the time to make the switch to Smalls. Head to smalls.com/legalaf and use promo code legalaf at checkout for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. That's the best offer you'll find, but you have to use my code legalaf for 50% off your first order. One last time, that's promo code legalaf for 50% off your first order plus free shipping. See, even if Donald Trump has some version of immunity for something that he did that's listed in these indictments around the country, it doesn't extend to John Woodbury or Tim Miller or really any of the co-conspirators, indicted or unindicted, around Donald Trump. None of them can use immunity as their defense. You know, that doesn't extend. It's not like a privilege. It's not attorney-client privilege. Both sides sort of get the benefit of it, or some sort of other executive privilege. This is immunity, right? It's a get-out-of-jail-free card extended by the MAGA Supreme Court to Donald Trump, and it only gets to be used by the card holder, by the bearer of the card, and that's the guy who used to be president based on this ruling. Not you, Woodbury, not you, Miller, and not the rest of them. And we should be concerned, and I'm sure the FBI, if they're saying in a joint communication with the Department of Homeland Security that they're seeing increased threat levels based on their review of social media and the dark web and 4chan and all the rest of them, that means their entire groups within the FBI, and all they're doing is watching particular threats and investigating them and potentially prosecuting them against basically Democrat targets. And this, it was already, before Pennsylvania, it was already something that the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, Secret Service, Postal Service investigators were concerned about. And now it's just went from 10 to 11, right, on the scale. But that's what the FBI is charged with doing. You know, I know there's calls by MAGA and by Trump to hollow out the FBI, to defund the FBI, to defund the Secret Service. I don't know. But every day, the FBI, in conjunction with the Department of Justice and its fellow investigators around the country in the various departments, work to make our country safe. There's a reason that terrorist plots get interrupted. There's a reason that assassination attempts aren't reported as assassinations. There's a reason that, terrorist cells, sleeper cells that could have been in this country since before 9/11 and may still be, are tamped down, infiltrated, investigated, prosecuted, and jailed and broken up And we don't have things happening around the country that could have, based on what 9/11 portended, could have been happening. When you have a serious, mature FBI, Chris Wray's been around both Republican and Democrat. Chris Wray was there for Donald Trump. So when you have mature people heading the Department of Justice and the FBI, which happens when you have an administration headed by our president and vice president, then I can report on these types of indictments, including of Jan 6 defendants. All those Jan 6 defendants, and there's thousands of them, that think any part of the immunity decision is going to help them for the Supreme Court are in for a rude awakening. There's absolutely nothing in the immunity decision that helps or impacts any of the indictments. I mean, the only thing is there's a small subset of people, about 200, that had a charge related to obstruction of a official proceeding, and the Department of Justice is picking up the pieces since the ruling at the Supreme Court about how to thread the needle and continue those counts against those people. But almost all those people also had other violent felonies against them, so it really doesn't change the math at all. That's not going to help them. And if anybody who's a Jan 6 defendant thinks they're going to get bailed out by any other of the rulings, like the recent one by Judge Cannon, this lone aberrational rogue decision, fringe, that the special counsel was improperly appointed and funded, and therefore all indictments that flow from that office are invalid, doesn't help any of the Jan 6 defendants because they were not prosecuted by special counsel. They were prosecuted by Maine Justice or the U.S. Attorney in the District of Columbia. So they're not going to be helped there either. But this ends up seeping into the water supply. And the followers of Donald Trump and the crazy armed followers of Donald Trump do these things thinking in the back of their mind that their fearless leader is going to somehow pardon them if he gets in, because it's all right with him if an FBI director is threatened with assassination because he's not, quote unquote, loyal to Donald Trump anyway. And so that motivates them to do the things we're reporting on right here. I'll report on all the indictments of all the people that act out and try to take out the pillars of our democracy right here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. Join me on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, where we curate the top 4 or 5 stories at the intersection of law and politics, and we bring it to you right here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. If you like what I'm doing, leave me a thumbs up and a comment. It keeps me on the air. We're building this network by word of mouth with your help. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know, and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.